井上康彦です。アクセルスペースで衛星通信エンジニアをやっています。I'm currently working on creating a network of microsatellites. We need to create new technology and provide almost real-time communications. I see huge value to be an IEEE member. IEEE gives me a great opportunity to make human connections. That's a great gift from IEEE. IEEE is my competitive edge.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the November edition of the IEEE-USA Washington Update. I am Eric Heilman, Government Relations Director based here in Washington, D.C. And as always, I appreciate you tuning in. Lots going on, nothing going on, sort of the same kind of prelude that I always give to a lot of these. So let's kind of dive right in with the overview of what's happening in terms of what's on everybody's minds, policy-wise, inside the Beltway-wise, congressional, White House, that sort of thing. We'll touch on Tuesday's election night in a handful of states and kind of what that might mean. Can't not talk shutdown. There's a lot to talk about there. There's a lot of focus on the Supreme Court right now and the tariffs that the president has been very freely using as a tool, economic, foreign policy, and otherwise. And then there is a lot of focus on the action that the administration is engaged in with regards to Venezuela. Congress in particular is very interested to learn more, and there's going to be some high-level briefings on Capitol Hill related to this, and that in and of itself is fairly new, a new development. So that's kind of what Washington is watching, talking about, dealing with right now. So let's just touch on the election results. I don't know how well you can read these maps. It was actually rather an interesting way to portray this data when I saw these maps in these two particular states that were kind of the big ones that everyone was watching on election night at the gubernatorial level in particular, but also some more down ballot races. Essentially what you're looking at here are arrows going completely in one direction, blue arrows going to the left. That in each of the regions within each state that kind of denote how far left some of these counties and these regions move between the 2024 election and this election, just in terms of party. And obviously it was a blue wave, a blue sweep, whatever you want to call it. I don't need to go too much into a lot of the details here, but just the fact that this happened is significant. And is very much a part of the calculus now in Washington on a number of things, on a number of fronts, both political and policy, legislative, everything. And you know, there's a lot of things we can talk about with respect to what it all means, and where a lot of this goes now that we've got these pretty significant one direction results. Obviously, it wasn't just the gubernatorial elections, but some of the other ballot initiatives related to redistricting. I'm thinking particularly in California. There were some races in Pennsylvania. There were kind of a number of races that were bellwethers. And if you're a Democrat, you're very, very happy right now. If you're a Republican, you're looking your room. One big data point, and always is President Trump. Right now, his disapproval rating is very, very high, and that has to have an impact on something like this. The president himself sort of blamed the fact that he wasn't on the ballot in any of these races, and there's some truth to that. When he is on the ballot, he tends to bring out a lot more Republican conservative votes. When he's not, the theory is those votes stay at home. They don't actually cast ballots. And he also blamed a little bit of the shutdown, which was very disheartening to a lot of the congressional Republicans who were trying to paint the shutdown as a Democrat problem. Clearly, that's not working for congressional Republicans. So there's a lot of tea leaves that you can try and read out of this. When you have an election result like this in the middle of a congressional legislative cycle, then the questions obviously arise. Okay, so what happens to the legislative agenda moving forward? First of all, we got to deal with the shutdown. And I'll get into a little bit about that. And there's been a lot of developments today on that front. You've got the look ahead to the next year's midterm elections, which now looks a lot brighter if you're a Democrat, and a lot more concerning if you're a Republican. And in that sense, how the rest of the legislative agenda, the rest of this year and throughout next year plays out is really going to be driven by this sense that Democrats now have an ability, or feel like they'll have an ability, to maybe take the House. The Senate's a much bigger hurdle, but if you take the House, in theory, then you can impeach the president, because that's the House's prerogatives. And so a lot of these things are starting to bubble in folks' minds here. And when you've got that sort of lens on legislation, any notion of bipartisanship starts to even thread away a little bit, because if you're a Democrat, you're much less inclined to work with your Republican counterparts, because you don't want them to have a win and go back home to campaign and say, hey, look what I did. You want to try and stall, kill, whatever it is that they're trying to do in order to maintain their majority. So a lot of that stuff's going on right now. It's kind of not surprising, but obviously it's a little bit of frustration as well. Let's talk about the shutdown. We have officially reached 37 days as of today, which is a new record. It is officially the longest that the federal government has been shut down due to an appropriations lapse, a lapse in budget authority, a lapse in spending. That's not exactly a record that I think anybody's happy about, but it is what it is. It's the reality right now. I will say that there are a lot of members of Congress who are kind of tired of this and really want to weigh out. They feel like they've been stuck by the politics themselves. And there's a lot of desperation and interest in trying to find a way forward. Just 25 minutes ago, there was a report that came out of Politico here in DC that says GOP makes new funding offer, opens door to reversing mass firings. Republicans delivered their latest proposal just ahead of a crucial Democratic lunch meeting. So that's pretty significant. There are talks going on. There are new proposals being put forth. I hate to put a crystal ball that's got this level of specificity, but I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic that the government might be open next week. It just feels like it's time. It feels like there's enough momentum. There's enough sort of developments, the right people talking to the right people. So fingers crossed. We'll see how it plays out the rest of this week. There is a recess scheduled for next week for the Senate. The House has been in recess this whole time. They haven't done anything. The Senate has been voting and debating, although there's not a whole lot to debate and vote on. But they are still in session, and right now they're scheduled to go on recess, but that could be canceled if there's a chance that they could resolve this shutdown. So stay tuned. And I think a lot of this is stuff folks know, but to kind of put a finer point on what this all means for the federal workforce, because at the end of the day, it's not just the money and the programming, it's the individuals, it's the people who work in these agencies. There was a letter that was sent from the Congressional Budget Office to the chair of the House Budget Committee to kind of outline some of the specific impacts that the shutdown is having on the economy and on the federal government itself. And I think some of these numbers are pretty eye-popping. And we talk a lot, and I'm sure many of you sort of know about this, the difference between an essential federal employee and a non-essential federal employee, and essentially breaks down 50-50 with the numbers. You've got 600,000 essential or accepted employees and 650,000 who are non-essential and are basically have been furloughed. And what's interesting, as I was putting this together, kind of listing in particular the types of federal employees who are considered essential, the first thing I put up there was air traffic control. But if you're traveling at all, planning to travel in the next few days, or watching the news, you're quite aware that there has been a massive sort of shift in the workforce right now at FAA, as well as TSA. There are a lot of staffing shortages, and airports are starting to scale back flights. Secretary of Transportation has indicated that they will cut back a lot of the travel, and airlines themselves are already sending out emails to folks who are traveling, warning of delays or assuring people of certain flights. So I put this up here as essential and saying they have to report, but a lot of employees are, even essential federal employees are calling in sick, taking vacation days, not showing up. It's pretty disconcerting right now, where this is headed, or where this has been heading. And I do think a lot of this is what's also driving this movement on Capitol Hill to end this shutdown. And also, I do think a lot of what cabinet officials are saying in terms of gloom and doom, while real, is also a little bit politically motivated, right? They want to kind of get the public upset and concerned, and get something moving in Congress. That's not to say they're abusing their oversight and their authorities, but there's a little bit of motivation to kind of be a little bit alarmist about what's going on, despite the fact that a lot of it really is real as well. In terms of R&D, agencies have been doing a lot of interesting financial, bookkeeping, and budgetary, creativity, I think, in this lapse. DoD has been taking money out of some of its R&D funds to make sure that military personnel continue to get paid. On the one hand, it's great that they're getting paid. On the other hand, it's not great that that's the kind of pot of money that they're going after right now. And I think it just signifies a really difficult lack of prioritization and importance in R&D, science and tech, research generally. But this is the reality that we're in right now. So they've got another $1.5 billion that they took out of their research accounts just recently, after already doing $8 billion not that long ago. So it's frustrating, but this is, again, what we're dealing with right now. And this, I saw this this morning, actually, in Punchbowl News, and I really thought that this encapsulated the mood right now and sort of the general relationship, at least between the president and the majority, his party, who controls Congress. There's a massive disconnect going on right now. And they really are in different places about this shutdown. It's been no secret, even going back to the president's first term, he doesn't really like Congress. He doesn't want to deal with them. He finds it frustrating. A lot of presidents, that's not abnormal. Presidents want to do what they want to do and use the authority that they have or think they have and move forward on an agenda. And having to deal with Congress can be, I think every president will say it's frustrating. But President Trump right now in particular, I think he's just tired of them. And he's so focused on other things, and he's just there is a massive disconnect. And when that happens, especially when they're in the same party, that's not a recipe for productivity. That's not a recipe for progress in terms of legislating and policy and addressing real concerns. So it's really, really kind of, I don't like to use the term doom and gloom, but it is darker earlier now here, and so it just seems like, because of daylight savings, it just seems like there's a lot more clouds out there in reality as well. But if they get this shutdown resolved, that will certainly bring some rays of sunshine, if you will. So in other news, and this administration has been shown to bring a degree of drama to a lot of government in a lot of different ways. And here's another sort of piece where Jared Isaacman has been renominated to be the NASA administrator. He was the original nominee, very widely received by most stakeholders, sailed through his congressional hearing, his nomination hearing, and was all set to go to the full Senate floor to be approved and confirmed when the president pulled his nomination in May. And now he's back. I don't know exactly what happened, but right before he came back, there was a massive leak on this sort of, you could call it a blueprint, a manifesto that he put together for the president and internal audiences there about his plan for remaking NASA. He called it the Athena plan. It got out there. It's been circulating among a lot of Capitol Hill staffers and space policy lobbyists. It's pretty detailed. We did end up getting a copy of it, but for proprietary and privacy reasons, confidential reasons, we're not at liberty to send it out or release it. But there's a lot of significant proposals in there to make a lot of changes. And if you really want to learn a little bit more, there's a handful of articles out there about what's in it. So just Google Athena plan. And what's going to be interesting is he's been renominated, but he already went through confirmation hearing. But there's all this new stuff that has come to light with respect to this Athena plan and developments that have just happened generally at NASA since his nomination was pulled. Chances are he's going to have another confirmation hearing, which is quite unusual, and will be a lot harder, I think, this time, because I think senators are really going to grill in on a lot of this new stuff. I still think he's going to get confirmed. I still think, barring any strange incidents again, we may have a full-time administrator at NASA who is not also serving as the Secretary of Transportation. So stay tuned there. These were just some interesting things that happened at a DOE recently. They have a new AI strategy document that's pretty detailed. They've also announced $625 million for quantum research. It's already obligated funds. Obviously, they don't have anything for FY26 because that's what's causing the shutdown. But to the extent that they're putting money in places, there's certainly a lot to laud about this particular funding announcement. Again, both of these things are on DOE's website if you want more information. And speaking of DOE, and it's almost laughable to say we're already looking ahead to the next budget, but we kind of have to. We still don't have FY26 resolved yet at all. We're operating under FY20. We were operating or going to operate under FY25 levels if they kept the government open without doing a new budget. But we're looking ahead to FY27 because federal agencies and the White House, the OMB, which is in the White House, Office of Management and Budget, is putting together a budget proposal for FY27 that presumably will get sent to Congress sometime in the spring, and then who knows. But IEEE-USA has always supported robust funding for a number of the agencies that unfortunately are suffering right now from a budgetary and staffing perspective, maybe even more so than some others in the federal government. We are a member of a number of inside the Beltway political and policy coalitions supporting these issues and others, and just recently sent a letter to the administration supporting a level of funding that is higher than even last year's for the Department of Energy's Office of Science, which is one of a handful of science-based agencies and federal programming, federal accounts that we have always supported. This letter is on our website. We've got a policy log within our website that that's got all the letters we are coalition partners with, and there's a lot of names on this list here in terms of the membership, and I don't know how much you could read depending on the screen that you're looking at, but I wanted to put this up there just so you get a bit of a sense for who this coalition is. It's mostly universities, it's mostly research organizations, and a lot of societies like ours, as well as a couple of private companies sprinkled in there, including IBM. So it's not insignificant, and it's what it does is it gives us that platform to go forward. This is what the community wants. This is what we're going to advocate for if and when we get that chance. So that's there. I also found this that was rather interesting. OECD put out a report on science and tech outlook for 2025. These 7 chapters or subheadings are the pieces of this report. It's about 250 pages. It's a lot. There's a lot there. I certainly haven't read through all of it, but there's a few of these that I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into just to kind of see what the global policy world is looking at in terms of science, tech, and innovation. And I certainly encourage you to take a look and see if there's anything there of note, and let us know. We always appreciate input and feedback from our membership in particular, and in particular those of you that have expertise in a lot of what is being discussed here. And then some other things, I was kind of looking for a lot of other bits to kind of pull in, because we're in one of these times where there are things happening, and I do want to make sure that our membership and our community kind of understands and sees that we're on top of a lot of stuff, despite a lot of the headwinds and roadblocks and whatever whatever words and terms you want to use. I reported maybe a couple months ago that we stood up our new Space Policy Committee here at IEEE-USA, and not long after we did that, our chair, Johnny Pellish, got invited to speak at an event up in Baltimore, which is great. It's sort of taking a lot of our policy priorities and just sort of the structure of what we do at IEEE-USA to broader IEEE audiences. And so that's a great development, and I'm looking forward to his remarks there. We continue to meet with congressional staffers on a number of issues. My team met recently with the staff from Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona to talk a little bit about education and workforce issues related to his previously proposed AI for America plan, which has got a lot of different elements to it. And this was just sort of an ongoing conversation that we've been having with the senator and his staff about pieces of that plan. For those of you in the defense industry, you may have seen that there's some major acquisition changes coming at the Pentagon. So look out for that if that's in your wheelhouse. There's a new Senate bill related to AI chatbots. That's kind of been one of the newest buzz issues right now related to AI is chatbots, and this is specific to minors and children. And the FCC moved forward with some rules on licensing for satellites and more bandwidth. This has kind of been something that the FCC, has been interested in some time. And if you followed anything related to spectrum, you know that there's quite a lot of conversation going on with a goal of sort of freeing up a lot of spectrum for commercial, and some tension with military stakeholders who would prefer to kind of keep some of it. So this is a development in that space. And then I kind of clipped a good handful of headlines from various news sources that we track. And there's a lot going on out there that is of interest, and some of which we are aware of and working on, some of which I just kind of want to share for our audience. We've got energy stuff here, AI stuff, semiconductor stuff, and China in particular, some more NASA stuff, again, which probably will come to play in Mr. Isaacman's second confirmation hearing in the Senate. So things are happening. We're working. We were tracking things. We kind of have to play with the cards that we're dealt, but we are playing. And we just want to assure you that your concerns are being addressed. And if they're not, let us know. I'm always eager for feedback to not just these reports and webinars that we give, but to kind of what it is that we're doing, and whether there are other ways of doing things or other issues that you all care about. We always are eager to show value to the membership. So please feel free to send some feedback our way. I've only got one event to report on this time around. We're winding down the year, so things are slowing down in that space. But we're going to very quickly wind back up when we turn the calendar over to 2026. There are a lot of big plans in the works for our events next year. But this is not a small one. ICOP, which is our Congressional Outreach Program, where we take the elements of our CVD, our Congressional Visits Day here in Washington, and we take it on the road and go into various parts of the country to organize IEEE members, largely YPs and students, to meet with their congressional and federal representatives in their states, and in this case, in their territories. We had a lot of interest from Puerto Rico. Obviously, they've got a representative in Congress. and a lot of issues that are very front and center that a lot of our Puerto Rican members are interested in addressing. So we're going to be down there next month to have a good set of policy meetings and engage a lot of the YP student folks down there, and I'm looking forward to it. That's really all I've got. It feels like a lot, but it also doesn't. It's just sort of that time. I think I said last month when I did this that by this time I fully expected to have a government open and running, and I'm going to repeat that for December. I do feel a lot more optimistic now than I did a month ago, and I even think in the next few days to weeks there will be some movement on that. How that breaks, and then what happens with all those federal employees, all that work that sort of sat and hasn't been done, all those grants that stalled, all that research that didn't get done. I don't know. We don't know. And that's what we're going to be really on top of and getting involved in as best we can, when that finally happens. So as always, I'll pause here for questions. I'm keeping an eye on the comment box, and I don't see any. Yeah. So Don Jerez, or I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name. I just got your handle right there. Yeah. Remember that essential employees are not being paid. Correct. They are under stress. And, I think I said this before. We are in Washington, D.C. here. I live in Northern Virginia. I don't think there's any region in the country that has more federal employees than this region. There's nobody in this whole region that doesn't know somebody, if it's not them themselves, who aren't facing this reality. We've got neighbors, parents of my kids' friends. It's very real, and it is really, really hard right now. And the economic toll, much less the personal toll, is very real. So yeah, I'm glad you point that out, and I think it's absolutely worth remembering. So thank you. Okay, that's all I see right now. Thanks as always. Going to be an interesting next several weeks here, and hopefully I will be back with a much brighter tone and a lot more optimism about things that may be happening and things that are coming down the pike when we meet again in December. So thank you, everybody. Take care.
I am passionate about energy, so I look forward to coming to work every day. I work on challenges across the world that actually solve problems for people. In the next decade, I want to be a thought leader influencing some of the key decisions in the energy space. IEEE has given me a competitive edge by helping me hone my leadership skills. It is the best decision you can make as a young engineer. IEEE is my competitive edge.